Move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5A personnel, approve hire of Carl Johnson, drama director.
I move the board approve the hire of Carl Johnson, drama director.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the hire of Carl Johnson, drama director. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment?
Just put the book over there and make it easier if there is none.
Anybody want to make a comment in spite of that? All right. Item 7A, adopt policy 4220, complaint process.
I move the board adopt policy 4220 complaint process.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to adopt policy 4220, complaint process. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7B, adopt policy 4250, district cell phone policy.
I move the board adopt policy 6250, district cell phones.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt policy 6250, district cell phone policy. Is there any discussion?
Why is this policy up now?
It's not up, it's just something I brought forward to the table after looking at other city and county policies. What we had on our last policy is the employee would reimburse the district for any call, for any reason, and has to have a little more leniency that if there was no cost to the district, that they'd be allowed to make a personal call on occasion.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8A, approve purchase of 40 Chromebook computers with rural grant funds not to exceed $19,000.
I move the board approve the purchase of 40 Chromebook computers with rural grant funds not to exceed $19,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve purchase of 40 Chromebook computers with rural grant funds not to exceed $19,000. Is there any discussion?
Are these just replacing all those ones that are on that rack that go around all of these?
Yes, and we use the grant funds for this specifically, so that it's easy to track with exactly what we purchased. And this is money that, as of lately, we don't even apply for. We just get it because of the rural nature of technology. So whenever we can, use those for computer replacement. Department of Ed is where it comes from.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8B, approve purchase of 12 Apple computers for technology lab not to exceed $18,000.
Move the board approve the purchase of 12 Apple computers for the technology lab not to exceed $18,000.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the purchase of 12 Apple computers for technology lab not to exceed $18,000. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8C, approve resolution 2015-10-20, allowing newly elected board members to attend WASDA conference.
I move the board approve resolution 2015-10-20 to allow newly elected board members to attend the WASDA conference.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2015-10-20, allowing newly elected board members to attend WASDA conference. Is there any discussion?
Was, there was nothing in any of the policies or anything before, because they've gone before.
They do, and we have always typically approved the resolution.
Okay.
It just makes a formal.
This has to be done each time, or?
Well, you don't have to, but it's recommended because you're basically spending district funds on
Sure.
not to
Not-
get elected board
Right.
members. So it formalizes the process to say, we stand behind this, we passed a resolution.
So you just take care of that each time it happens then.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8D, approve fall overnight travel for athletic teams.
I move the board approve fall overnight travel for athletic teams.
It's been moved and seconded to approve fall overnight travel for athletic teams. Any discussion?
Ready to have some turkey time?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8E, policy 2030, service animals in school.
Okay, well, this is a first read policy put out by WASDA. Are you guys open? It's not, okay, we're 5 minutes. Anyway, hopefully it's in here. Might not be, but we saw this very short. If you've been around anywhere, any Fred Meyer's, Safeway, you've probably seen the number of four-legged creatures in stores increased dramatically in the last year. By federal and state law, service animals are allowed to assist. And it's supposed to have kind of like a diagnosis, but I think it's been brought in its most liberal terms. But it says a service animal trained for the purpose of assisting or accommodating a disabled person's sensory, mental, or physical ability. So
Yeah, I think there is a legal definition.
there is a legal
of what that
definition, and
means.
it's coming, so it's first read, but I'm pretty sure we do approve it because there really isn't much we can do about it. Okay, well, let's try the next one.
All right. 8F, policy 6114, grants.
Well, this one, let me try something. Put it in another folder as backup. These donations. This whole word line might not open. You guys have a copy of these by chance?
You looking for the four from the bottom there?
We just have it on my.
That is grants, there should be another one saved on there.
I thought that's the one we're on.
Well, I'm trying to, but I got a virus in it today, and I've been working on it all day, and it worked 2 minutes ago before the meeting started again, and I were down here checking it out, but,
Is there any way you can put my iPad in that?
So we're on to grants.
what's that?
Yeah, well,
AF is
We're on
grants.
grants.
Run grants,
14.
6115.
Right.
It's the fourth one from the bottom.
On our paper, it says it's 14. There it says 15.
Okay. Since you want 15,
Yeah.
we can talk about 15. As you guys remember from last spring when we were working with the Lujan Manor Immersion Group, we had no policy on grants. We had a policy on gifts, and the two are really not the same. So I've done some looking and bringing this proposal to the board. Basically, we had a chance to look at it. It says, we do encourage and are receptive to financial grants. Give some specific language that grants on behalf of the district should be applied for by the district, not other entities for the district. So I wanted to make that clarified, and the grant is different in that gifts are often given or donated, but grants are often applied for. Probably the key in all of this is that grants need to be used for the purpose that they're applied for, and they shouldn't cause additional cost to the district. So you might get a grant for something, but then you have to spend a bunch of money on wiring or systems to make it work. So it's supposed to be.
That's what we did with the beautiful. We paid for part of that.
Right. What we're asking in this policy is that grant applications of $25,000 or more have to be approved by the board, and for the superintendent to have authority to approve up to $25,000. For example, we often ask Templin Foundation for funds, and those can range anywhere, from 5,000 to 15,000. So it's just a first read, something to consider, but at this point, we really have nothing on grants. So,
Does this have any impact on the Chinese immersion and the way the funds are brought in through their organization to the school?
well, it would in the sense that in this case, the school would be applying for those funds, not an arm of the school or a support group like the Booster Club or Mandarin Immersion.
So this
So-
is saying that it would have to be done by the school.
Done by us, through us.
So the funding came from the South Pacific County Community Foundation, and so in the future, the school would have to apply to them for a grant for the immersion, as opposed to the parents' group.
So it's something to consider, we're looking at to hopefully have it approved at the next meeting. The other one is on gifts, and you guys kind of faster than.
Four above that one.
I'm seeing words, so I'm not my word on it there. Not gonna hold it. We do have an existing gift policy, it's 6114, and the way it reads right now is if a gift of $100 or more, the board has to approve it. And what I'm asking is if we could up that to $1,000 or more. It just seems like $100 can come pretty quickly, and it'd be nice to have a little more latitude. We've also added some clarifying language in here that the gifts have to be accepted by either the principal or the superintendent, that we don't want people necessarily bringing us their gifts if we don't want them, so it has to go through, an official process where you have to receive permission from the district to accept the gift. It also adds a little language, for example, like booster clubs often like to make donations, but it has to be evenly distributed. When we ran into this in particular at Ocean Beach, we had a very active booster club for boys basketball, but they weren't as active and maybe generous, I guess, with other programs. So we put it in the hands of the district to provide a little more oversight, but we are asking that we're able to up the amount up to 1,000.
I believe Longview has 10,000. Is that before it has to?
It really varied. I didn't see too many districts at 100, which is where we currently stand right now. Again, something to consider for next time.
Does that get tricky a little bit? If a person wants to say donate money specifically for the football program or for the boys basketball?
It does get a little tricky, and that's why we ask it to go through us, because we will have a pretty good feel then. It's always coming in, to one fund or another. We can maybe encourage them.
And can funds be donated specifically for a particular program?
They can, and we do have that.
Because I thought there was, in the past, it gets a little sticky and
We do have an existing gift policy, and it's a lot like the one I'm saying. This one basically adds some clarifying language on where the funds go and at what level it has to have their approval. Okay, what do we have next?
16 or more?
This one we don't need to look at either. Okay, this one is a WASDA recommended policy, federal cash and financial management. It's a policy we don't currently have. But what it is requiring, and the policy is only about this long, which is very short for a WASDA policy, but as a federal grant recipient, they want you to have what's called a CFDA number, which is domestic funds. It has kind of an odd name. But we get a lot of funds from the Department of Ed and rural grants, things like I just mentioned earlier for the computers. So basically they want now is in our accounting system, the grant, the title, it has a specific federal ID number, and which is going to come in handy because like I mentioned in our earlier communication that we receive over $500,000 of federal funds. So we'll be having a lot more of these numbers on our bill thing that we'll see because besides the back to specific grant funds. Hopefully I'll have my problems fixed by, I don't know, they were fixed 5 minutes ago. So.
Okay.
That's it for those. I'm going to try to go back into this now.
Item 9. Karen?
Oh my goodness, that time before the year. Okay, if I could direct you to these two documents right here. These are the ITBS scores from last spring for grades 1 and 2. And the test is administered at the beginning of May. So we would expect kids to be 1.8, 1.9, school not being over till June. And if you look at, I think this document, if you look at those black lines on both, so I'll just explain on the one, that 25 percentile is low average and up to 75%, which is high average. So you want to be somewhere in between there, at least. And our kids did really well. Once again, if you look at our first graders, they scored in the 67 national percentile rank for ELA, for the extended, that's all complete ELA, so you're encompassing reading, language, vocabulary, word analysis, listening, and then in the math, they were at a 76 national percentile. If you look over at the GE, that's a grade equivalency, so the lowest there was, for the first grade, was a 1.8 in vocabulary, but again, they weren't done, you know, with the first grade, and that's where they tested. And then the highest, if you see, would be a 67%. That was the ELA extended. So those kids were easily within grade level and also outscoring, you know, more than half the national, those kids in their classes across the country. So if you look down below, what that horizontal bar reflects, so you see the little bars, that actually tells you the difference between our group's percent correct and the nation's. So we're really doing well. When you see where those bars extend out. And what I also did was a comparison of the Mandarin versus the English kids, just to see, you know, where are we, because I've done that the year before. And so these kids, the first graders, for their first year of Mandarin, we tested 15 kids. 11 of them, because I can't give, you know, individual scores, but we're at a 2.0 up to a 2.9 level. Second grade, 9th month, in the beginning of the second, or the end of the first grade, 9th month. One student was at a 3.0 plus, and then 3 students were between 1.4 and 1.9, which not, so 2 were a little bit lower, obviously, than 1.9, which is where they should have been. 1 at a 1.7, 1 at a 1.4, but totally 80% of them were above grade level, and 20% of them were 1 month to 5 months below. Okay, now if you look at the second grade, we tested 18 kids. Let's see, 18 kids were, or no, excuse me, I'm sorry, in English math rather, 18 kids were tested. So that would be right here. 10 of them tested at a 2.0, 3 of them tested at a 3.0 plus, 5 of them tested at a 1.3 and above. So 72% of those students in that class were above or at grade level, and then 27.7 were below. Now, you have to keep in mind, we do have some special needs kids, and that does factor in there too. So I think, you know, they're both doing a great job, and all the teachers all across the board. If you look at second grade, they would be at a 2.9. There were 24 and 25 tested. If you look at the N equals over here, it depends on how many kids were there on that given day and tested and whether they made it up or not. I thought what was really interesting is if you look at their listening, they scored at 51%. So for whatever reason, this group of kids did not test well in listening, But if you look at the rest of their scores, look at their math. Their computation was at a 96th percentile nationally. That's really great. That's amazing. It really is. So only 4% of the students in this country scored higher than they did. And actually it's 99% because there's that, 1% that you can't factor in. So it doesn't go 100%, it goes to 99. So then if you break it down, the ELA, so that's the reading, the language arts, the vocabulary, word analysis, they had a 67% national percentile rate. Their math composite as a group was in the 76th percentile. And their core composite, that was the entire math, core composite was 73%. And then if you look at and break down the Mandarin math, this is their second year in Mandarin math. 12 of them were tested. Seven of them were 3.0 plus, and that actually went up to a 3.9. 4 of them were 4.3 plus, and I had a student at a 4.9, and one was at a 2.8, which is just 1 month from the end of that year. So I would say technically they're at, it says just below, but you could say just below because it's 2.9 and would be 3.0 the next month. The English math grades, 7 kids, 3.0 plus. 2 of them were at 4.2 plus, and I had a student with a 4.7. And then 2 were with a 2.8. Again, just a little bit low. I don't believe it's anything we're going to be concerned about. And then 2 kids with a 1.1 plus. So one student had a 1.1 and another student had a 1.7. Okay, again, they're special needs children. So overall, though, if you look at, they had a 69.2 at grade level or above, and 30.7 almost or below grade level. But that's really kind of deceiving because it's not below really. Okay, there were just a couple of kids there. So I think overall, if we look at the black lines, our kids really have continued to do better than a majority of the country because 50% is half, and then anything above that is especially when you look at the computation, math computation, 96th percentile. And I can't say for sure yet if it's the new math program that we instituted last year, the Singapore math, could be, that we will have that data.
Why do you suppose their scores are so good when their listening abilities are
I wonder that too. That's why I pointed
just
that
that
out.
they listen, right?
Yes.
So they're learning in spite of the fact that they're not listening.
I mean, it would be through the roof if they just listened.
Well, that's what I thought too, but I don't know, and I'll tell you, you
That's
should.
crazy.
I mean, just come in and see what all the teachers are doing. It's absolutely amazing.
And their listening isn't horrible, it's just.
No, it's not. They have a
modest.
body. It's 50%, 51%, with everything else is well above that, 60 percentile, 70s.
We used to have that for part of the 10th grade assessment was
Yes,
listening,
it was listening.
and they threw it out.
Yes, they did.
But that 96% is insane.
Isn't it
That's
that?
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty excited about that. Okay, now, if we could flip over to, do you have this?
I did,
Oh,
it won't,
it won't show us?
like, once I plug in this,
Okay, I can, okay, if I could run real quickly, I can make you copies of this.
they have that. Isn't that what you just handed out?
No, that's the ITBS. These are the SBAs. Do you have those?
Oh, that's different. These.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
They would have that on their iPad, but people don't mind.
Okay. Just because I can point out to you, mine's in color, but I can show it
It's already
to you.
scored or.
So, this,
We'll share it.
these are the scores from the Northern Balance Assessment. And I think we're aware that this is the new test that's aligned with the Common Core. Okay. Last year was the first year it was completely computerized. And to keep something in mind, that this test, technology our children, I believe, were challenged. Number one, when the third graders had to take the test in the same format that 8th graders and 10th graders took. They had to pull up different screens on their computers. So you read your narrative over here, you pull up your questions over here, and then you have to go back and forth between the two screens and mark your answers. Better yet, find the details from the paragraph that support this topic. Now I have to swing over here, find it, and then get back over there. If you have children with tracking issues, it's definitely going to be problematic. So honestly, I was pretty excited when I first saw our scores. So if you will look at them, what I did is I put thank you, got it. So in black are the state scores, and in blue are NACEL scores. If you look at the ELA, so English Language Arts, that's reading for 3rd grade comprehension, the state was 52.0. We were at 59%, okay? There were 2 refusals, that cost us 9%. So we really should have been in the 60s, because the 2 that refused would have passed, okay? Based on everything we know about them, they should have passed. If you look at our math, 56.6 for the state, NACEL got 54.5. We took another 9% hit for the 2 non-testers. Also, we had 3 new students arrive the week or the day of testing, and we were obligated to test them. And needless to say, they didn't do as well as our children. That's okay, we still have to test them. So they do count in our scores. If you look at 4th grade, the state, 54.5% in the ELA, NACEL, 63.1. The math, 54.0 in the state, 63.1 in NACEL. A lot of the schools last year, like the previous year, 2014, highlighted the bigger districts. NACEL didn't. And when I look back at the state scores from the previous year, 2014, and compared ours, our kids outscored every state average in every single area. So while, we might not have met the average in some of the cells, we actually did better than everyone who tested the first year. So this is our first year. Okay? And if you look at 5th grade, 57.5 in ELA, our kids 77.7. And math, the state was 48 percentile, we were at 55.5. 6th grade, 53.9, and we were a little below the state with a 52.6. And in math, 45.5, and we were at 57.8. Again, I can't speak to individual children, but I can tell you that there is quite a large population of special needs with accommodations. They take the same test. Okay. So look at the 7th grade. This is the group that we've been working with. 56.8% in the state. They were at 44.4% in ELA. And same in math, where the state was at 48. We had 1 refusal that cost us 3.7%. We would have been right there with the math that we're a little low in the rating with the 7th grade group. And I can tell you that this year, through our Learning Assistance Program, we are providing English Language Arts instruction in a double dosing, and we're also double dosing in math and seeing results. We also split that 7th grade group in English, so we now have 2 small groups. And the teachers are saying that they're really seeing results. So I'm hoping that those scores will change with the efforts that we have employed. If you look at the 8th grade, 56.8% in the state for ELA, and we have 60.8. And the math at the 8th grade level was 46.1 in the state, and we were at 52.1. Again, that was kind of disappointing. We thought that they would do better than that, but again, it was that new test. I can tell you that I've watched a student, at least one, take the entire test in 10 minutes. Not only took the practice test in 10 minutes, but took the real test in 10 minutes. So some kids are giving up before they even get started because they just feel like it's way too difficult for them. Okay? But we're going to keep working with them. And I have to say, that student now I've been watching him in the lab class and go in there and encourage him, and he's really upbeat now, so I'm hoping that that will change this year. In 11th grade, I can tell you right now that if you read across the state, the 11th graders did not need that test for graduation. So our kids tried as hard as the state did. 26.2, actually our students tried as hard. We had 4 refusals. Okay, so they had taken the test. And then 13.6 in math, and we had 26.3. Much better.
How do these refusals happen? Is that something?
They just say, I'm not
parents opt
taking the test. They just don't show up for the test,
out?
and the
Oh, so
parents.
the kid just opts out.
Exactly. And what happened, Bobby, was the state said, it's not required, but you will administer the test. So there were entire school districts in the state of Washington where the students just boycotted school that day. I'm trying to think, they were up
I
north.
think
in
Bellingham was one of them. Yeah.
Up in South Dakota. Okay, so now, if you go to the science, our 5th graders, the state was 63.3, and our kids were at 77.7. The 8th grade average in the state was 60.6, and then our kids were at 56.5. But I looked across the state and thought, wow, that's interesting. We've always done really well in science. What happened? So when I looked at all the neighboring districts, Kayagan, Ocean Beach, Raymond, Valley, South Bend, I even went up to Bellevue and Lake Washington, they all went down in science. It wasn't just Nave South. But I wasn't happy about that. Okay, well, what's the deal? So I looked all over the state, and the scores were down. So overall, the state scores were lower than the 2013-14 school year.
Yeah, was that the same test?
No, the SBA, or no, it is the UBOC, yes, the MSP. The science is still the MSP. But they changed the problems on there. The questions changed. They don't remain the same because it's a protected test. So something happened, Chuck. Honestly, something had to happen. Because our kids have historically scored much higher than that. We've been in the 70s, high 70s, 80 percentile. But then I thought, okay, why? And then when I started looking, it wasn't just myself. And when I see the big districts doing that, the ones that are really affluent, so when you look at Mercer Island, Lake Washington, Bellevue, and they're not doing as well as they had before, something changed. So we do now have Ms. Felder, who's teaching our science, and the kids really seem excited, interested. Not Mr. Smith did a phenomenal job, don't get me wrong. But now she's taking on all the middle school science, so Mr. Smith can go with some of his science. So we can move up to the EOCs, and of course for math. So this is all grades. The math EOC in the winter, the first EOC, 6 out of 7 passed it, and then the spring, 10 out of 11. All 9th graders passed. So we had 16 out of 18 pass that first EOC. And then if you look at EOC Math Year 2, in the winter we had 1 out of 2 pass geometry, and in the spring 2 out of 6. So we had a total of 3 out of 6 pass. Okay. If you go back, out of the 20 out of 26 10th graders that passed our that's the down. Okay, look back a little bit. Yeah. So math, we're not real concerned about it because the students, where it says 3 out of 6 pass, 2 of them will get to pass with a level 2. That's an accommodation that's there for them. And we're confident that they will pass that. Those students who are given a level 2 is called a basic, and that's part of their accommodation because of disability will pass that test. So we actually have 1 student who needs to pass that. Okay. And then all the 9th graders passed, so we just have the 2, and those 2 students will pass with a basic, a level 2 as well. So all our kids will be good to go in that math area. If you go down to biology, the state scored it at 63.5, and they saw us at 92 for the biology test. So all our kids who need that for, which they actually took that away, It's now not required to graduate. That, they said they might come back in 2018 to then they said, well, maybe 19. So right now it's not a requirement, but we do require them to take that as a course assessment. And that just explains that 29, 26 has the ELA test, and that's needed for 11th grade year, 13 scored at level 4. Diane Bennett, it was the 10th grade English language arts teacher, she did an amazing job. To get to the level 4, that is the highest level, and she had 13 of her students score at that level. 7 of them at level 3, and 6 of those that did not pass. 3 of them did pass with a basic, so now we're up to 23.6. That leaves 2 students who will take the ELA assessment, and they'll be granted a level 2 passage, leaving 1 Gen Ed student to pass that ELA assessment. So we have 1 student that we need that to graduate. So we're doing okay in that department. Now, I'm talking about school improvement. So in case you didn't know, NACEL was put on the radar for school improvement at the elementary level, which is kind of interesting because we received accolades from Randy Dorn last year and the year before. This is all a federal requirement. If you remember last year, I told you that the state lost their waiver for federal programs. And there's that accountability where you have to get all your students to pass the test at 100% by this last year. What didn't happen? So now what they do is they put you into improvement and they say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Step 1 was, we didn't have to do anything, okay? It was just, oh, you're in step 1, so you need to fix that, okay? You didn't have to tell anybody about it. Well, step 5 means you have to reorganize your whole school. Okay? So step 1, last year, oh, you're in step 1. So we're working away, we're, getting accolades, we got a reward from the state. Well, the feds took away their waiver. So this year, we go online, and they say, oh, well, you're in step 1. And now, here are all your requirements. So, well, wait a second, step 1 doesn't have any requirements. Oh, well, you do now because we lost our waiver. So, what I did is I sent out a letter as they wanted, and the letter to the elementary families says it's elementary and it's in reading because we didn't get to the 100% in the reading or make that advancement that we needed to make. And so we had to send a letter out to the families. We had to tell where that area was, it's in reading, and then give families school choice and provide transportation. Well, we could provide transportation to Wahkiakum because they're the only ones that aren't in school improvement, but number 1, they're too far, and Bob Garrett said, no, I have enough of my own kids, I don't want yours. Okay. Ocean Beach actually called me 3 years ago and said, hey, you guys are doing really, really well, can I send my kids down there? I said, no, we have enough of our own, sorry. So when I went to them, they're in step 2. South Bend is in step 3. So there's really not anywhere we can go. So we're just working really hard here to try to raise that. We do have our new reading program this year, and teachers are doing a lot of testing now. If you come through this building, they are sitting out in the hallway. We have educators, we have teachers working with small groups. The paraeducators are sitting out in the hallways reading with the kids. They're testing them for fluency, they're testing them for comprehension, they're testing them for their English language arts skills, their phonics. So we're really putting a lot of time and effort into it. We have kids coming to an after-school program. I mean, we're really making a really big effort to try to raise that score. And hopefully, when our kids take the SBA this year, that we will do what we need to do to get ourselves out of step 1. So it's just the lowest level, but still we don't even want to be step 1. And the irony of it all is we received an award. So I called the state and I said, well, hang on, I don't get it. You gave us an award for high progress. Well, yeah, but this is different now. Okay, we lost our waiver, and
How did the other schools stay above step 1, such as, say, South Bend and wherever else you mentioned?
South Bend's not on step 1, they're in step 3.
That's actually lower.
There's,
So they're on step 3.
they're in step 3, which means now that they have to provide supplemental